good. I do it. I cut my own.
Okay, so
Good job.
Cindy,
Okay.
Cindy Kelsey's on the telephone. She can't get in.
Oh, good. I will get her
Okay.
moved over in just a minute, and we are streaming live now on YouTube, so we should be good to go. Mayor Smith, whenever you're ready. Okay, and Cindy can hear us?
I do it. I cut my own.
Okay.
Good job. Cindy Kelsey's on the
A bit of
Somebody
kind
getting
of feedback. I'm not sure why, but
I will get her moved over in just a minute, and we are streaming live now on YouTube, so we.
okay, it's 4:02, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. First motion is moved by Tom and seconded by Bill that the agenda for the regular council meeting held April 27th, 2021 be approved as, are there amendments, Kathy?
Yes, there are. Is one amendment, and it's under number 16, the closed session. There's an addition, another number 3, it's the same as number 2, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by municipality or local board. So that resolution is for going into closed and coming out of closed. And that's all I have.
Okay, so approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Madam Mayor, before we proceed, can I just confirm that the phone number 336-8277 is Cindy Kelsey?
That's me.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
If I disagree with something, I'll just let you know. Otherwise, I'm a yes on the votes because you can't see my hand.
All right. All right, so we've approved the agenda. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof of any item on tonight's agenda by any member of council? Okay, hearing none, we'll note that in the minutes. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Nikki that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April the 13th, 2021 be approved as presented. Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor? Carried. Mayor's remarks, I have just a few brief remarks. One is we need to give congratulations to Andy, our building inspector, who's just finished his large building course exam and passed it with flying colors. The other comment or the other information is that Frontenac CFDC has changed its name to Frontenac Business Services. There was quite a spreadsheet in the paper last week of all the things that they've been doing. Real important part of our community. There is the census taking place starting May 3rd, and we all know that census data is what determines a lot of our grants and factual information. So if you're talking to anyone, encourage them to be there and complete their census. I think people are still dropping off packages and picking them up. I'm not sure how it's going to be done in COVID, but I do know they sent out emails that they were hiring a massive bunch of people to do it. So census is very important to all of us. On the COVID front, Dr. Moore says we're doing reasonably well. There were 20 new cases on Monday. The ICU in Kingston is full. We're doing quite well here, although every small town has 1 or 2 cases, including us. So we can't let our guards down. We still have to maintain our distances or do all of the things we've been asked to do. And staying home isn't bad because the black flies aren't here yet, so we can still get out in the garden, but you only have a couple more days because once that sun comes, they'll be out fast and furious. And that's it for me. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, seeing no hands, we'll go on. No deferred items, so we'll go right to staff reports. And our first report is Fire and Emergency Services Activity Report. I have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Brent that council receive the CFFR Activity Report dated April 27th, 2021, as prepared by the Acting Manager of Emergency Services Fire Chief for information. Any discussions or questions for Jamie on that report? Okay, Bill?
Yes,
Go ahead, Bill.
You, Madam Mayor, to Jamie, how does the 2021 compare to last year? I didn't see any numbers there anywhere. Maybe I missed them.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald. We are actually trending below 20 calls this year, which is a good sign. Medical calls we're averaging about the same, but overall we are down.
Well, that's good. Follow up, Madam Mayor, is that due to training and or education of the public as a per se?
I'd like to say it's a combination of it all. I know the weather has played in our favor as far as the wildfire season. We did have the couple of weeks that were hot and humid and the conditions were right, but I think with the events that led up to the burn bylaw and the information that we've been pumping out in regards to the burn bylaw and the times and restrictions and the penalties, I think that plays a key role in people abiding by what the rules are set out.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we have the fireworks bylaw, moved by Sherry and seconded by Cindy, that council accept the proposed fireworks bylaw as prepared by the Acting Manager of Emergency Services / Fire Chief, and further that the bylaw be passed later in the meeting. Questions or comments about the bylaw?
I have a follow-up, Madam Mayor, if I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
So through you, Madam Mayor, through some questions from in regards to the time and around when fireworks were allowed to be set off, we were asked to look at extending a period of time between the holidays listed in B through E. Because some holidays that fall under those categories would fall through the week, and some of our non-resident people that come down on weekends would like to be able to do their fireworks on the weekend, either before the holiday or after the holiday. So we have made 2 amendments to section 3. We've changed, we've added section 3.2, which I'll just read. Consumer fireworks will also be permitted 3 days before or after the days named in sections 3.1 B through E, inclusively subject to the same time restrictions, so noted. So there's still, so for the 3 days before or the 3 days after, they can set off the fireworks, but they are restricted between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. And 3.3 is if a person wishes to set off consumer fireworks for an event or celebration outside the specified times in section 3.1 or 3.2, i.e. birthday party, anniversary, other cultural event or celebrations, must apply for an exemption to the chief fire official a minimum 7 days prior to the event. So we've added that into the bylaw to to take into account our non-residents and the people that come down on the weekends, so that they can enjoy their celebrations at the time that they're here.
Any questions or comments from anyone about those amendments? Bill?
Not about the amendments. If you want to clear that first, that's quite understandable. My question was to Jamie through you is do we actually know who has a license to sell fireworks within the township, and how do we enforce it if somebody's selling them? How do we know they are actually have a permit to do so?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the permits for fireworks, the consumer fireworks are basically the level 1 explosives that they're classed as, and retail stores can sell them. There is regulations around how they are stored in the buildings. The display fireworks, they are approved through NAPCAN. There's special permits and courses that people have to take in order to purchase those. And I do believe there's only 3 locations, but don't quote me on that, in Ontario, where you can actually buy the display fireworks from. And they are regulated, and the person that purchases them has to have the proper certifications and training in order to purchase them.
And for instance, Jamie, I just want to mention that in our case, when we do hold the Canada Day fireworks, is that we end up purchasing from John Campbell of Canazon, because he does have the authority to, he's got the display, so he's got the authority to buy them. And then we turn around and we buy them from him.
Yep.
Is that not correct, Jamie?
Yes, that's correct. And we also have
A licensed igniter as well.
Yeah, some of our members with the Station 3 have their igniters licensed, so they help John out with the igniting of the Canada Day fireworks.
Thank you.
Okay. If there aren't any more questions, I will ask what your pleasure is with the motion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Got some feedback somewhere. I have a motion. This is 15-year capital fleet replacement schedule. Moved by Nikki and seconded by Tom, that council accept the CFFR 15-year capital fleet replacement schedule as prepared by the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief for information. Any discussion on that? Tom?
Thank you,
Go
Your
ahead.
Worship. Thank you, Your Worship. Oh, I haven't yet. Thank you, Your Worship. Jamie, I noticed in your capital expenditure, I really appreciate that report, by the way, but I noticed you didn't have any PPE, bunker equipment, or breathing apparatus, or any other sundry equipment that we normally capitalize. Is there going to be another report coming out with that equipment on there?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Dewey. Yes, I can do another report as well with that. I felt with the fleet replacement, we've been working, or I've been working to come up with options as far as the pumper replacements. As everyone's aware, we were looking at three pumper replacements by 2024. So with some dirt digging and working with our consultant, we were able to spread this out. So I just wanted to share, this projected fleet replacement schedule with council to show that we have overturned some options, and we're able to spread the capital purchases out of our pumpers and tankers over a longer period of time to help ease. So one of the changes is tanker 441 that is actually leaving New Brunswick on Thursday. We'll be doing a visual inspection of it on Friday at Loyalist Fire. They're going to pull off the 401, and we're going to do our visual inspection there because we can't travel to New Brunswick. As we were working through this and the way the truck was originally designed, we were able to get a ULC rating as a pumper for that truck. The only addition was the addition of ladders to the truck. So we were able to incorporate that into the build as they went. So when we take it delivered, it'll be certified as a pumper tanker for the municipality. So that helped us extend one of our 2004s for an additional 5 years as a second run pumper. So, and then the same with when the new pumper for Station 2 arrives, hopefully mid-June. That opens the door for another pumper, or another of the 2004 pumpers to be extended to 2029. So that gives us 2 more pumpers, a second run pumpers. So it opened up avenues for us to extend our fleet, and now we're just working on our response plan for the stations and the roles of the units in the stations.
Thank you, David.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions or comments? That certainly will help us in our budgeting process over the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yes.
For sure, or 15 actually, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. That was a very worthwhile project, Jamie. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran.
All right.
Thank you, Council.
Next, okay, we're at Public Works, and we're talking about winter maintenance here. Moved by Bill and seconded by Victor. Whereas a request for tender PW 2021-03 was released on April 6, 2021 and closed on April the 20th, 2021 for winter maintenance on various roads and facilities for 3 consecutive years, 2021 to 2024. And whereas one bid was received from Hamilton Carpentry, and whereas the Public Works Manager has reviewed the submission and is recommending that the contract be awarded to Hamilton Carpentry. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager and award Hamilton Carpentry as the successful bidder in the amount of $3,340.99, not including HST, for Area 1, and $2,311.59, not including HST, for Area 2 for 3 consecutive years. Any questions or comments? Tyson is with us. Bill, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Tyson. Tyson, these numbers, of course, are per event. Am I correct in understanding that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct, per event. It's an average of, there's a price per road for plowing only. There's a price per road for sanding only, and there's a price per road for plowing and sanding. So the contractor has to average those 3 prices to come up with Area 1 and Area 2 pricing.
Right. Now, to follow up, Madam Mayor, if I might, there is a chance that in a large snowstorm that one road may be plowed a couple of times before it's cleared. Am I correct in understanding that? And how would this costing on per event compare to us doing it ourselves?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the bill, you're 100% right. The could be up to 3 times per event that we get charged for. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I'll apologize in advance. I had my Excel sheet on one screen, I had my report on the other, and I had on my projector, I had the agenda, and everything crashed on me, and I'm working off my cell phone now, and I had a lot of these numbers. But the long and short of it is that we have to pay these operators. It's not just the winter season. We have to keep them busy all year. So it's a salary all year, and it's it'd be at least 3 new plow trucks. And it's quite astronomical how much we'd save by using this contractor. We definitely can't afford to do it ourselves for that price.
Okay, I assume that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay. Is there anything else for Public Works? No, that's it for Tyson. Thank you, Tyson. We're moving on to Finance and Treasury. Accounts payable. Moved by Brent and seconded by Cindy that the council approve the check distribution reports totaling $1,545,397 $1,000.89 as prepared by the treasurer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. So easy to spend $1 million. Apportionment of taxes, moved by Sherry and seconded by Nikki. That council approve the following apportionment of assessment as recommended by impact for 2021 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them there. Any questions? You each have talked or seen that in your package. Seeing no questions, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Budget to actual variance report to March 31st, 2021. Moved by Bill and seconded by Sherry that council accept the revenue and expenditure budget to actual variance report for the period ending March 31st, 2021, as presented by the treasurer for information. Any questions for Michael or comments? Michael, do you have anything to add?
A very good
all those in
position
favor?
compared to last year. There's not, there's a lot of year left to go, I guess, to tell us how we're really going to end up. But the winter control was certainly under budget. So kudos to Public Works.
Excellent. Bill.
Yes, I just want to comment through you, Madam Mayor, to Michael. I really thought his report was quite well done and quite informative, and all the follow-up stuff, I have to admit at this point, I didn't read all those fine lines. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Carried. Okay, now we have a motion talking about the audit. So maybe it's time to introduce our auditors. We have Kara and Ann with us, and Michael, I think they're going to be taking over the screen and reviewing some numbers with us.
Thanks for having us. So I'm Kara Chesney, and I've met some of you before, so I'm the partner on the file. But I'm gonna be Ann's assistant today. So she's very intimately familiar with the file. You know, we had our audit team out on site a couple times during the year. So I will let her take it away, and I'm gonna drive the presentation. So give me a second, and I hope this will, there you go. All good?
All good.
Kara, before you begin, I just wanted to let you know that Michael got booted out of the meeting. He's trying to get back in. So if we have any questions for Michael, it might be a few minutes before he gets back in.
Okay, no problem.
Should I wait for Michael to get back in before we start, or should we just get started?
No, I think we can go ahead.
Okay, so Kara, if you just want to move to the next slide. Okay, perfect. So first off, I just wanted to start out by thanking council and management for all the assistance during the audit this year. It was a smooth audit process, as it has been in previous years, and the assistance is always appreciated. So firstly, I just want to lay out some of the objectives of this audit presentation. So we're going to discuss the results of our audit of the consolidated financial statements. We're going to communicate any significant matters which council should be aware of, and then any other matters of interest. So this is our auditor's report for December 31st, 2020. So in that first paragraph of the auditor's report, that's our audit opinion. And that paragraph indicates that we believe that the consolidated financial statements present fairly the statement of financial position, the statement of operations and accumulated surplus, of changes in net financial asset, and statement of cash flows, which essentially just means that it's an unqualified or clean audit opinion. And this year's audit was based on a materiality level of 400,000. This is the threshold by which we would consider an item to be misstated if not adjusted. However, our posting threshold, which you can see noted below that, is 20,000. This would be any items that we would actually be proposing adjusting journal entry for, which is 5% of that $400,000 amount. Meaning we would propose an adjusting entry for anything over $20,000 during the year. So the audit process is complete pending the receipt of the management representation letter, which we will get signed after council approves the consolidated financial statements dated today's date. And then once the statements are approved, the final approval date will be listed on the second page of this auditor's report to indicate that today was the approval date of the financial statements. So there were no significant no difficulties encountered during the course of our audit procedures, no changes to the initial audit plan that we presented to management, no disagreements or difficulties with management, and no new auditing or accounting standards in 2020. Okay. So this is just a summary of our audit process at MMP. So our audit includes a review of all the significant accounting and management reporting systems with the review of each material year-end balance, key transactions, and other events considered significant. We've also focused on understanding the controls that are in place and the management reporting systems to the extent necessary to identify overall and specific financial reporting risks. Specific areas of focus in the audit, as have been in prior years, are revenue cutoff and recognition. As in auditing, this is considered to be an area that could be manipulated to increase revenues. And then tax revenues, specifically the risk around township members receiving preferential rates. Okay, so our audit findings. So in our we had really two main audit adjustments this year, both of which were provided by management. So the first adjustment was just an adjustment of a deferral of grant revenue for the safe restart funding that was received. And the second adjustment was to include the surplus of the Frontenac community arena. And like I mentioned, both these adjustments were provided by management, and there were no other adjusting journal entries identified by MNP. No significant internal control weaknesses we identified, and any other control observations and improvements have been provided to management. Okay, so this is the statement of financial position as at December 31st, 2020. So this statement reports on the total value of assets and liabilities, and it shows the township's ability to meet liabilities and future commitments. So you'll see that the net asset position has improved from 4.2 million in 2019 to approximately 5.32 million in 2020, reflecting the ability of resources to fund future services. Specifically, you will note that total financial assets increased from 10 million to about 11.28 million. And I think this might actually be on the next slide. We have to, yeah, perfect. This is primarily as a result due to an increase in accounts receivable. You'll see that accounts receivable has gone up from 2 million to about 2.9 million. This is due to large funding amounts receivable at year end from ICIP, Ontario and Canada grants for the St. Village project. Cash has also increased as a result of increased revenues over the prior year, with expenditures not increasing at the same rate. You'll see the total liabilities have increased from 5.79 million in 2019 to about 5.96 million in 2020. This increase is a result of an increase in accounts payable and accrued liabilities due to the corresponding invoices received and payable for the St. Village project, as well as amounts owing for road pulverization projects. This increase in AP is offset by a decrease in your long-term liabilities due to the repayment of the Fifth Lake loan during the year, as well as payments made on the Fire, Public Works, and Crow Lake loans. Your non-financial assets have increased to 38.6 million from about 35.8 million, and this is a result of large projects during the year, including the St. Village project, which was about 2.8 million, as well as the surface treatment of the pulverized loan for 1.2 million, and large purchases during the year, including fleet and machinery, such as the tandem plow. So this increase in capital asset additions was offset by amortization expense of about 1.99 million, and disposal on capital assets with limited proceeds. So this graph just shows the history of the capital asset additions and indicates that it indicates the total additions from 2013 to 2020. And it also notes that the estimated capital asset consumption is 57% in 2020 as compared to 65% in 2019. This amount has decreased as the number of capital asset additions have increased in 2020. So this pie chart here just shows the total, the breakdown of what the capital asset additions in 2020 consisted of. So you'll see that the majority of additions related to roads at 50%, primarily the St. SL Village project. And the second largest category is assets under construction at 23%, which is additions to WIP from the surface treatment of pulverized assets. However, the majority of this amount has already been transferred into use during the year. And then the third largest category you'll see is 6% in machinery, equipment, and furniture, which relates to the new fleet and machinery purchase, being that tandem plow. So this statement is this is in the notes. This is the accumulated municipal surplus. So ending in 2020, the township had an accumulated operating surplus of 4.26 million compared to 3.28 million as a result of an increase in the annual operating surplus. The net investment in tangible capital assets for 2020 was about 36 million as a result, again, of the increase over the prior year as a result of new capital additions in the current year. Total reserves set aside by council were about 4.1 million compared to 4.5 million. So this is due to more transfers out of reserves and into reserves during 2020. And then total reserve funds for specific purposes were about 351,000 compared to 348,000. So there hasn't been a significant change in there. So this is the statement of operations. So this statement shows the total revenues and expenses from Jan 1 to December 31st. So you'll see that total revenues for the year were about 14.86 million compared to about 13.23 million in the prior year. So this is primarily as a result of an increase in property taxation. So you'll see in that first line item, an increase of property taxation in PILs of about 7.7%, which is consistent with the prior year. You'll also note that government grants have increased, consistent with funding agreements received. And you'll see that actual revenues were slightly lower than budgeted revenues due to projects not started, but funding or spending already being budgeted for. So increase in expenses went from 10.65 million to about 10.95 million in 2020. Increases in expenses over prior year primarily is attributable to the increase in wages due to the pay equity review done during the year, as well as inflation and amortization of capital assets. And then you'll also note that actual expenses are lower than budgeted due to decreased transportation services. You'll see in that line there, as a result of decreased amount spending in material expenses, reduced fuel costs, reduced fuel repairs than budgeted for. And so this graph just shows a split of the total expenditures in 2020. As in prior year, transportation accounts for 51% of expenses, followed by protection at 22% and general government at 16%. So this is just our summary of our audit findings. So major points were that net assets increased due to the increase in accounts receivable, tangible capital assets purchased. Tangible capital asset additions in 2020 were about 6.7 million. And then over half of the annual expenses in 2020 were related to transportation, followed by protection and general government. And then there are no significant encounters to standard developments to note for 2020. Does anyone have any questions about our presentation before we just look at one of the new updated notes in the 2020 financial statements? Yes.
Bill, go ahead.
Yes, I don't have a question on the presentation, but I have a question that perhaps you could follow. We're spending about half of our revenue on roads. And I'm just wondering, how do we compare to other townships equal size and equal lengths of road with, for example, with the same amount of hard top and gravel versus their spending? Where are we at in the average of the communities that you might be auditing? Can you give us a insight there at all? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
At this point, I'd have to go back and take a look. I can't say offhand, unless Kara, you can.
Yeah, I would say, you know, you're sort of in line with the community of your similar size. It's, you know, it depends on the services offered in the township. You might be a bit higher. Like I'd have to, like Ann said, I'd have to go back and do some number crunching. You might be a bit higher this year, but I know there's been some significant projects that have been undertaken in the last year or 2 years. So, you know what, and again, even townships are a similar size. It depends on the residential development too, right? So if there's significant residential development, there's going to be a ton spent on roads and new roads and resurfacing, and so I don't have any specific concerns, but if you know, we could go back and look at some others and give you more specific numbers for sure.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think anyone else has any burning questions or comments, so let's continue on.
Okay, and the only other thing we just wanted to look at was a new note that we added to the statements this year. So Kara's just going to pull that up. So this is the significant event note. So this note, you would have seen a similar note in the 2019 statements, but it would have been labeled subsequent event. This note just details what's been happening with COVID. So the first paragraph is standard wording from MNP on what has occurred with COVID during 2020. And the second paragraph discusses the impact on the township specifically. So specifically that the township has received additional funding for safe restart to support COVID-19 operating costs and pressures, as well as the measures that council has taken during 2020, and then that the impact of COVID-19 on the township is still unknown at this date, the future impact, sorry. So all the other notes, I'm not going to go through in detail as they would have been updated from prior numbers, and they are there to support the amounts in the schedules, but they can be, users of the statements can go into those notes for additional details if they would like. So other than that note, the only other item that we would like to go over would be just to ask if there has been any additional subsequent events up to today's date that any of you would be aware of that should be disclosed in the financial statements as in the December 31st, 2020 financial statements.
Certainly nothing that I've seen. Anyone else see anything that they need to add? Okay.
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 I don't think Michael came back to us.
No, I don't see him.
I don't see him.
Yeah, he was back and then he left and must have got knocked out again.
Certainly working in a pandemic year for everyone, staff, auditors, council, has been a tough time, but you know, we've done very well to stay safe and to keep things going. It's amazing how creative you can get when you have to be. So people have been patient with us, and I think staff have done a tremendous job to keep the boat sailing down the rocky waters, rough waters. Okay, I have a motion, and it's moved by Brent and seconded by Cindy that council receive the audit findings report and presentation by Anne, I cannot pronounce your last name, and Kara from MNP LLP for information. Kara, how do you pronounce this last name?
I'm gonna let Anne pronounce it for you.
It's Wojciechowski.
Say that again.
Wojciechowski.
Yeah.
Wojciechowski.
Wojciechowski. There we go. All right. All those in favor?
We call her Ann W in the office.
Good. Okay, motion's carried. Thank you very much, ladies.
Kara, could you throw the host back to me so I can take back the controls?
Oh, yeah.
I think if you just right click on your name, or on my name, you should be able to make host. If not, you can do it from the panelist screen.
Give me a second.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you have to stay on for
There you
the
go.
whole meeting, Kara.
Perfect.
I think I did it.
Now, Michael has rejoined us by telephone, so I'm going to move him over. And I believe Cindy Kelsey has also had to call in. Cindy, oh, hang on. Cindy Kelsey, is that you on the phone again?
Yeah, 336.
Okay, so I'm going to move her
Okay,
over.
I'm back.
Okay.
Okay.
My
Michael,
phone
the
died.
auditor said that you did a reasonably good job. Michael, are you here?
Hear that?
Muted.
Don't give him a big head now.
It's probably just as well he is muted. Okay, so we passed that motion, so let's move on to the draft official plan. I have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Tom. Whereas council requested staff to revise the land use schedule map of the draft official plan at the April 13th, 2021 meeting to formally recognize the hamlet of Henderson as a settlement area, and that the change be made prior to the April 28th open house. And whereas staff have made the revision, which will be presented at both the upcoming open house and public meeting. Now therefore be it resolved that council receive the draft official plan revision to land use schedule, addition of Henderson as a settlement area for information. And Joe is with us if there's any questions. Okay, seeing no questions. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. So the open house is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. I will be there to open the meeting, and council, it's not a council meeting, but you might want to call in or Zoom in to listen to comments that the public will be making. And basically Joe will be running the meeting and we'll be listening. Is that right, Joe?
Through you, Mayor, yes, council's very welcome to attend. Myself and Cindy and Sonia will be running the meeting and taking questions. And just so council is aware, I'm working on the slide presentation and I have one slide that shows Henderson clearly on the map. So I think there's an interesting news report last week that I enjoyed reading about Henderson and Pluto. Your esteemed journalist, Mr. Vakai, wrote. And also, as I mentioned at the last council meeting, we will prepare a briefing report to council following the open house to give you an overview of what the questions were asked and the response prior to the May 18th public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be at the meeting as well too, Joe, so.
Good,
I'll be
thanks,
listening.
Kathy. Thank you, Kathy.
And there was a letter today that came to council and to Joe as well from the White Lake group. So that will be included for information. Okay, so that's tomorrow night.
Yes.
Let's move on to CPAC member recommendation. Moved by Bill and seconded by Sherry. Whereas the Community Policing Advisory Committee, CPAC, received a resignation from one of the citizen members. And whereas we advertise for expressions of interest from the public for a replacement to serve on the committee. And whereas Dave Willis has applied for the position, now therefore be it resolved that council accept the application of Dave Willis to serve as citizen member on the Community Policing Committee for the remainder of this council term. And further, that we thank Alan Johnson for his contribution on the committee for the past 5 years. Any discussion?
Thank you, Your Worship.
All those in favor?
Yeah,
Go
I fully
ahead, Tom.
support Dave. I'm just going to say I fully support Dave coming forward. I know Dave, and he'll be a valuable asset to our CPAC committee, and I welcome him aboard. So I hope you all support that.
Great. Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. All right. We have an encroachment for the Maples Restaurant, moved by Elwin and seconded by Brent. Whereas the Maples Restaurant has requested a license or encroachment agreement for a number of elements of their property that encroach onto municipal property. And whereas several of the elements contemplate exclusive use of the land for the benefits of the restaurant, including parking and playground facility. And whereas a lease agreement is more appropriate than a license of encroachment, a license or encroachment agreement for exclusive use of the encroaching elements. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to A, negotiate a lease agreement based on fair market rates subject to advice from legal counsel. B, specify that the following items are not included in the lease and must be removed/released from exclusion occupation. Street parking spaces from the medical center road, dumpster, and part of the fenced area around playground as noted in this report. And C, bring back a bylaw to council with the final agreement. Discussion? So lots of things to get fixed.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Okay. Next, we have a road closure. Moved by Nikki and seconded by Brent, that council agree in principle to close a portion of the road allowance between concessions 5 and 6 Hinchinbrook from Wagerville Road North, adjacent to lot 25 and part of lot 26, approximately 0.75 kilometers. And that council agree that the ownership of the road allowance and the bridge located thereon be offered to the owners of part of lot 26 concession 6, which property would otherwise be landlocked. And further, that the township assume all surveying, legal, and administrative costs of closing and conveying the road allowance. And further, that we proceed with the public meeting. Discussion? Pretty thorough report in the package. Bill, go ahead.
Who did you call?
Bill?
Okay.
Bill?
I just wanted we're closing a concession going through here. Generally speaking, when we're stopping up and closing a concession, we offer the land to both sides of the concession. Is that going to be an issue in this particular situation? I don't know.
I think they own both sides.
No, through you,
Cindy?
Madam Mayor, they do not own both sides, but we will be notifying the adjoining property owners to advise them of the road closure. So if there's any issues that arise from the adjoining property owners, we'll address them in the process. And I think it'd be extremely challenging to split the road allowance halfway because of the physical nature of it. But we can address that in the public meeting if it does come up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, hearing no other comments, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. Next is draft noise bylaw, moved by Bill and seconded by Victor. Whereas staff presented a draft noise bylaw at the September 22nd council meeting, and whereas comments were received from council and the public, which have now been incorporated into this proposed bylaw coming forth, and whereas staff are looking for further comments before the bylaw is finalized, therefore be it resolved that council receive this proposed noise bylaw And if no further comments are forthcoming, that staff be directed to prepare the final bylaw to be brought back to the next council meeting for passage. And I have to let a dog out.
Well, friends, Don, I'm just going to say, I've been speaking to Cindy about that, and there's a lot of things in that noise bylaw that is kind of skewed. So I think you all should take a look at it. I've been talking to her, and there's a lot of changes that need to get made to that noise bylaw.
Yeah.
I think
And I had
Cindy,
done,
you want
and also too, Tom, I had taken into corporation all your comments from previously.
Yeah.
And I've incorporated them in here. It is a change from the previous one because it seemed to be and I just might as well mention from one of the public is in regards to decibels. We should include something to deal with decibels. So that's why I've tried to incorporate some of that as well. So I've done lots of research on a lot of different noise bylaws, like I've had Leeds and Thousand Islands, there's Wellesley Township, some rural, the City of Ottawa, the City of Kingston. And really what we have proposed in ours is pretty well in line with all those municipalities. So
the problem is, Kathy, the schedules, and I talked to Cindy about that as late as today with regards to the Schedule A and Schedule B. If you look in there, they're all screwed up there. We need to take a look at those things and marry them up properly because they don't make any sense.
Okay, well, they're probably in regards to, because we were having some difficulty. I know when I was trying to do that with the schedule. The other the other one is regards to the penalties. We left them blank. And that was left blank for input and comments from certainly from council. Because I wasn't sure how council would want to deal with those kinds of things, because I know they vary. One township has got, like the Township of Wellesley, for instance, it's $200 for each occurrence, and they're pretty similar to these ones. The City of Kingston, well, they're very different because they're like $10,000 for their first offense, 25 for any subsequent offense. Leeds and Thousand Islands, it's $125, but they're under the Provincial Offences Act where they've had their fees, and I know Cindy's aware of that approved. So, but that's why it's coming for draft, so that you can have another, because I think that we need to get this passed and certainly because we're getting lots of comments from people in regards to generators. I did take any reference out about firearms completely out. Also to and I do have copies if anybody's interested on noise levels and the average decibels. So that's where I've taken some of these figures and sort of put in a range so that people would know. So that's where it's coming.
So I would suggest if you have comments to put them in writing and email them to Kathy so that we can get maybe the next draft closer to being ready to pass. The good weather's here and people are going to be coming back to cottages once the lockdown is over. And we're going to be back to the situations we've had in previous years. Bill, you've got your hand up?
Yes, I just, one of the things I want you to look at, Kathy, is on the Schedule A, prohibition by time and place. I think we should remove Sundays because we have passed a motion that we allow Sunday hunting, for example, in duck season, just as one example. And I think the makeup of our community is changing to the point where Sunday is not necessarily their special day. So by just having one set of times in there for all week, then you're going to get away from supporting this holiday or that holiday in regard to a prohibition of sounds. And so I think we should remove any reference to Sunday in this motion altogether.
I've written that down. The other thing, and I've asked Joe to stay on the line for this, is I know we received an email. Madam Mayor had sent it off to us with a gentleman what was I think he had comments back in 2016, I think, to bylaw enforcement dealing with roosters and sound like that. So any of these bylaws that I've seen, there is no exceptions in there talking specifically about that. We have, so made, extensions or prohibitions against anybody in an agricultural use. Now, when I spoke with Joe today on it, he thinks that kind of, issue can be addressed in the zoning bylaw. So I've asked Joe to stay on to certainly give some comments on that, because I know that would be an issue, because I think when we had the open house, he did speak to us in regards to, and certainly with council, if we end up allowing backyard chickens, for instance, that you can, like he said in the city of Kingston does, prohibits roosters as one known. So do you mind, Joe, if you'd mind explaining that a little further? So
Yes, through you, Mayor. So yeah, Kathy asked me just to stay on in case there was any questions on the rooster. So in the draft official plan you have right now, there is a section on backyard chickens, and that council will consider regulating backyard chickens in the settlement areas that you're defining, like Henderson, for example, or Charlotte Lake. And you'll do that through a licensing bylaw. And a number of the licensing bylaws I've looked at that for this issue specifically prohibit roosters because of the noise they make early in the morning. So that's one way you can control it in the settlement areas. And through the zoning bylaw, you could also potentially prohibit that use. However, right now in your zoning bylaw, in the rural zone, which covers like 70% of the township, agricultural uses are permitted as of right. And I'm sure you're not surprised of that. And that does include farm operations, and farm operations obviously include animals and chickens and roosters. So you'd have to look at that when we get to updating the zoning bylaw after the official plan is completed. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have more work to do on this, but I think we're getting much closer to actually being able to pass it next meeting. So again, send your comments to Kathy. She'll get those incorporated as best she can, and we'll go forward from there. Everybody's good with that? Okay, so all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. All right. We are now at committee reports. I have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Sherry that council receive the draft minutes from the MVCA Board of Directors meeting March 17th, 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. There's no delegations. I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Brent that council receive for information the following correspondence, and it's number 1 to 8. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Bill McDonald, seconded by Sherry Wan. Whereas Council McDonald requested staff to bring back the correspondence received from Fort Erie for a closer look as it relates to landfill expansion decisions. And whereas staff would like more time to further research the act and bring it back to council at the May 11th meeting. So more information to be had. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Carried. So it's not as simple as we thought it was, maybe. Good. Okay, we are at public meetings. I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded by Victor that council receive input from the public meeting and the accompanying report prepared by the deputy clerk. And further, that council approve the recommendation to stop up, close, and convey to the applicant, Douglas Brown, that part of the road allowance between concession 5 and 6 between lot 24 geographic township of Hinterbrook as a lot addition to their property, and that staff proceed to obtain an opinion of value to determine purchase price and a bylaw be passed at a future meeting once the purchase price has been established and the survey work is completed. Any discussion? This one's been hanging around for a while. All those in favor?
And I don't believe there is anybody from the public who wishes to speak, but I will ask if there is anyone who is attending as a participant who wishes to speak on this matter, if you could raise your hand by pressing the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. Just give it a second just to make sure there's nobody on that wishes to speak. If you're phoning in and you wish to speak, it's the *9 feature. And I do not see anyone with raising their hand, Mayor, so I think we are fine.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. We have bylaw agreements moved by Victor and seconded by Cindy, that bylaw 2021-27 being a bylaw to regulate the setting off of fireworks within the Township of Central Frontenac be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 27th day of April 2021. Discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. Is there any notice of motions?
No.
Is there
None.
any giving of notice of motion?
No,
Is there any new or other business?
no.
Okay, there is closed session. I have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Nikki that council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act to discuss matters regarding 1, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, section 239(2)(f), tax sale property. 2, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or board, section 239(2)(c). 3, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 239(2)(c). All those in favor? Carried.
So if we could
Okay.
just take a couple-minute break while I turn off the recording, I'll let you know when everything's ready to go.
I need a dog door really bad.
What's that? Oh.